ladies and emperors. I just got back from Venice, and boy, are my arms tired.
At 98 years old, the comedy legend Mel Brooks has nothing left to prove and, supposedly, nothing left to hide. And if you've been on the internet lately, you've probably seen the story. It's in video after video, racking up millions of views with a headline that's impossible to ignore. Mel Brooks has finally named the 6 actors he despised working with. The story has gone viral, splashed across thumbnails and titles just like this one. It promises a brutally honest confession from the genius behind Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. The idea of him finally dropping the polite Hollywood act and dishing the dirt on the stars who drove him crazy is just too good to be true. And that's because, well, it is. The story you've been clicking on isn't the real story. The truth is far more interesting, more complex, and frankly, a lot funnier than a simple list. So, before we get to the names everyone is talking about, we need to talk about what this hate really means in the chaotic and brilliant world of Mel Brooks. The claim is simple. Mel Brooks finally spilled the beans and gave up a secret list of his most difficult collaborators. The videos are framed like a final, no-holds-barred confession, pulling back the curtain on feuds that were kept private for decades. And the names on this list aren't nobodies. They're legends. Icons. Some of them are the very people we connect with his most successful films, including his own wife. This story spread like wildfire for a reason. We love the idea of celebrity conflict. It makes the gods of the silver screen feel a little more human. But when you actually start looking for the source, a different story pops up. There was no big bombshell interview in a major magazine. There's no chapter in his fantastic memoir, All About Me, dedicated to his enemies. Instead, the source for this whole thing seems to be the very platform it's thriving on, YouTube. This hate list is a modern internet invention. The hate being described is almost always drenched in a strange kind of affection, a director's frustration with a performer's maddening, brilliant, and ultimately essential process. So, this video isn't just about debunking a rumor. It's about looking at what that friction, that creative combat, really creates. We're going to go through the 6 names on that viral list, one by one. For each actor, we'll lay out the claim that's been flying around, and then we'll get into the reality of their relationship with Mel Brooks. This is the story of how chaos, frustration, and perfectionism created some of the greatest comedies ever made. The first name that's always at the top of this so-called hate list is the lovable, big-hearted, and incredibly funny Dom DeLuisi. The story goes that Mel Brooks found it nearly impossible to work with him for one simple reason: Dom DeLuisi could not stop laughing. He wasn't just laughing at the jokes, he was laughing at everything. A prop squeaking. A funny look from a castmate. His own lines. For a director obsessed with comedic timing, this was supposedly torture. The viral narrative paints a picture of a set that was always on the verge of collapse. Takes were ruined, schedules were busted. The camera would roll, and Dom would already be shaking with laughter. The story they love to tell is from the set of History of the World, Part I. Dom, playing Emperor Nero, had a simple scene. But his co-star, Meline Khan, just had to give him a little look, and he completely lost it. The rumor claims he laughed for 45 minutes straight while the crew just waited. In these videos, Mel Brooks is often quoted saying things like, "Directing him was like wrangling a kitten hopped up on sugar." It sounds like an absolute nightmare, but to get to the truth, you just have to look at the work. Dom DeLuisi was a key member of Mel's crew, showing up in 5 of his biggest films. The 12 Chairs, Blazing Saddles, Silent Movie, History of the World, Part I, and Robin Hood, Men in Tights. Could a director who truly hated working with an actor possibly trust him with that much? The reality is, Mel Brooks didn't hate Dom DeLuisi. He was frustrated by him, sure, and probably driven to the edge of madness, but it was the frustration of a master craftsman faced with a force of nature. Dom's laughter wasn't a bug, it was the source of his magic. He was a giggling embodiment of pure joy. The very thing that made him break character was what made him so electric on screen. When they finally got a take without him laughing, it wasn't just good, it was comedy gold. Off camera, they were famously close. The hate Mel Brooks talks about is theatrical. It's a punchline. It's the kind of hate a guy has for his best friend who always shows up late but is the life of the party. He didn't hate the man. He hated how much he had to rely on his brilliant, beautiful, budget-breaking chaos. Next on the viral list is the one and only Meline Khan, an actress so talented that her name on a poster was a guarantee of something special. The claim here is different. Meline didn't ruin takes with laughter. According to the rumor, she ruined them with her brain. She was a perfectionist tornado who questioned every line, every motivation, every single joke. The story suggests that working with Meline was like being in a pop quiz you never studied for. She'd show up with her script completely marked up, ready for long debates. On Blazing Saddles, where she played the German singer Lily von Stupp, she supposedly argued about the tone. On Young Frankenstein, as the uptight fiancée Elizabeth, she wanted to explore the character's serious side when Mel just wanted the laugh. The legend paints a picture of a director constantly being challenged by an actress who refused to do anything that felt fake. This story, while blown out of proportion, does get to a kernel of truth about her. Meline Khan was a Juilliard-trained actress. She treated comedy with the seriousness of a dramatic artist. Her questions weren't about ego, they were about making it real. And as even the viral stories have to admit, more often than not, she was right. She's arguably the most memorable part of every movie she made with him. Think of her iconic performance of "I'm Tired" in Blazing Saddles. That scene is hilarious, but it's also genuinely touching. That kind of depth doesn't come from an actress just doing what she's told. It comes from an artist fighting for the truth of the moment. So, did Mel Brooks hate this? Again, hate is just a dramatic word for something much more complex. He was a director with a vision, and she was an artist who served her character. Of course, they clashed. But these weren't bitter fights, they were passionate debates between two geniuses pushing each other. He later admitted that his hate was really code for deep respect. He hated how exhausting her process could be, but he loved the brilliant, bulletproof results she always gave him. Gene Hackman's name on this list is always a shock, mostly because he and Mel Brooks only worked together once, for a single, perfect scene. Hackman's cameo as the blind hermit in Young Frankenstein is one of the most beloved moments in the entire film. The claim, pushed by the viral narrative, is that the two men just didn't click. The experience was supposedly so jarring that once was enough for both of them. The story goes that Gene Hackman, a giant of dramatic acting, wanted to stretch his comedy muscles. He was friends with Gene Wilder and asked for a part. Brooks was thrilled. But the set was a whirlwind of chaos and gags, a typical Mel Brooks environment. Hackman, on the other hand, was a different kind of craftsman. He was a serious actor in a profoundly silly world. The viral videos suggest that while everyone else was wild, Hackman was quiet and methodical, leading to a clash of styles. The process, according to the rumor, was respectful but distant. Now, let's break this down. Is it true Hackman was a more serious actor than the rest of the cast? Of course. And that's exactly what made his casting so brilliant. The blind hermit scene works because of Hackman's dramatic weight. He plays the character's loneliness with such sincerity that the physical comedy, spilling hot soup on the monster, lighting his own thumb on fire, becomes 10 times funnier. A regular comedian might have winked at the camera, but Hackman plays it completely straight. Mel Brooks understood this perfectly. He didn't want another comedian, he wanted Gene Hackman. The supposed clash wasn't a problem, it was the whole point. The story of hate here seems completely invented for drama. In reality, all accounts point to a professional and respectful collaboration. The idea that Brooks hated working with him is a basic misunderstanding of casting. A great director hires the right actor for the role, and sometimes that means bringing a serious actor into a silly world. If Meline Khan was a tornado of perfectionism, then Chloris Leechman, the fourth name on the list, was a hurricane of pure chaos. The story here is that Leechman didn't just question the script, she blew it up. She waged a one-woman creative rebellion on set. Her most famous role for Mel Brooks is, of course, the terrifying and hilarious Frau Blücher in Young Frankenstein. According to the viral story, her performance was born from conflict. She would allegedly show up late, argue about her character, and constantly pitch wild, schedule-wrecking ideas. She saw every line not as an instruction, but as a suggestion, a starting point for her own brand of madness. The legend paints a picture of Mel Brooks, a man used to being the craziest person in the room, being outmatched by an actress even more relentless than he was. So let's peel back the exaggeration. Was Chloris Leechman a force of nature? Absolutely. She was an Oscar-winning actress known for her fierce commitment. She was not a passive employee. Her genius was aggressive and improvisational. And it was exactly what Mel Brooks needed for Frau Blücher. So much of what makes that character iconic came from Leechman's rebellious spirit. The vague German accent, the sinister delivery, the way she can be both scary and pathetic in the same breath, these are the choices of a brilliant artist let loose. The famous Ovaltine scene, for instance, is a moment of pure, unexpected weirdness. That's what happens when a director is smart enough to let a genius like Leechman run wild. The hate Mel Brooks supposedly felt was the frustration of trying to wrangle a wild animal. You might get kicked, but that animal will take you somewhere amazing. Brooks knew Leechman's instincts were perfect. Her crazy ideas might have given him headaches, but they also created comedy he could have never scripted himself. He didn't hate her, he was in awe of her. He was exasperated by her methods but eternally grateful for the results. The story of Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor is maybe the most complex and sad of them all. The claim here isn't about bad behavior on set. It's about a film that almost happened, Blazing Saddles. Richard Pryor wasn't just a writer on the film, he was Mel Brooks's first choice to play Sheriff Bart. The viral stories frame their relationship around this moment, suggesting a hate born from frustration and what could have been. According to the story, Mel Brooks fought hard for Pryor. He knew Pryor was the only one with the genius and the danger to pull off the role. Pryor co-wrote the script, and a lot of the movie's edgy, revolutionary humor came straight from his brain. He was the soul of the film. But the studio, Warner Brothers, was scared. Pryor had a reputation. His stand-up was controversial, and he was open about his struggles. The studio panicked and refused to insure him. They said no. The viral videos described this as a huge source of frustration for Brooks. He had to cast the wonderful Cleavon Little instead. But Brooks always wondered what could have been. The hate here is described as a mix of anger at the studio and the pain of seeing his friend denied a role of a lifetime. This is the one case where the viral story gets close to the emotional truth, even if hate is still the wrong word. Mel Brooks's feelings here are all about love and respect for Richard Pryor's talent. His anger was never at Pryor, it was at the executives who were too cowardly to back a genius. Brooks has talked about this with real disappointment. He knew Pryor's Sheriff Bart would have been wilder, more dangerous, and more explosive. Losing Pryor as his star was a real blow. But what was left was deep admiration. Mel Brooks didn't hate Richard Pryor, he championed him. He saw his brilliance when others only saw risk. When Pryor's name comes up, it's not a confession of hate. It's a tribute wrapped in sadness. It's a testament to the irreplaceable genius of Richard Pryor. The last name on the list is the most shocking and personal, and Bancroft, Mel Brooks's beloved wife of over 40 years. The idea that he could hate working with her seems insane. And yet, her name pops up in these videos as the final bombshell. The movie was their 1983 remake, To Be or Not to Be. The claim is that when his Oscar-winning wife stepped onto his set, their marriage was put on pause, replaced by a professional rivalry. The story paints a vivid picture. Bancroft, a powerhouse actress, did not give her husband any special treatment. In fact, she did the opposite. She showed up with a script covered in notes and challenged his direction. She treated him not as her husband, but as a fellow artist who had to prove his ideas were good enough. The viral videos frame this as the ultimate challenge. How do you direct your own, equally famous, and equally stubborn wife? The hate here is the loving frustration of a husband whose authority was being brilliantly challenged by his partner. This is, once again, all about process. And Bancroft was an artist with immense integrity. She wasn't going to just nod and smile because her husband was the director. Their fights on set weren't arguments, they were high-level creative debates between two people who respected each other enough to be completely honest. Mel knew he had married a creative equal. Directing her was likely intimidating and thrilling all at once. He had to be at the top of his game, because he knew she was. Their chemistry in that movie is amazing precisely because it's built on decades of love, respect, and spirited debate. When Mel Brooks includes his own wife on a list of people he hated working with, it's the ultimate loving joke. It's his way of publicly admitting how formidable she was, as an artist and a partner. It wasn't hate. It was awe. It was the deepest kind of love, expressed the only way a comedic genius knows how, with a perfect punchline. Now that we've taken apart the hate list, it's worth looking at the opposite. What did it look like when Mel Brooks worked with people he famously adored? Two names stand out: Carl Reiner and Gene Wilder. Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks were best friends for 7 decades. Their most famous creation was The 2,000-Year-Old Man, a comedy routine born from pure joy. Their chemistry was effortless, a product of deep, genuine love for one another. There was no friction, just perfect harmony. And then there's Gene Wilder. For many, he was Mel Brooks's most important collaborator. They made 3 of the greatest comedies ever: The Producers, Blazing Saddles, and Young Frankenstein. Their relationship wasn't director and actor, they were creative soulmates. It was Wilder who brought the idea for Young Frankenstein to Brooks, and they wrote it together. They had disagreements, of course, most famously over the "Puttin' on the Ritz" number in Young Frankenstein, which Wilder wanted and Brooks didn't. Brooks gave in, later admitting it was one of the best decisions he ever made. That's what real collaboration looks like, a dance between two artists who trust each other completely. So, back to the big question. Did Mel Brooks really name 6 actors he hated working with? The answer, in the way the viral story sells it, is a hard no. There is no real hate list. What exists is something much better. Mel Brooks, the master of comedy, surrounded himself with other geniuses, and genius is often messy, difficult, and demanding. The viral hate list is a perfect example of how the internet flattens everything into simple drama. It takes loving, funny complaints about the chaos of being creative and turns them into a nasty story about feuds. Even the YouTube videos spreading this rumor often have a disclaimer that it's for entertainment purposes only, quietly admitting the whole thing is basically fiction. The truth is, Mel Brooks didn't hate Dom DeLuisi's laugh. He knew he needed its joy. He didn't hate Meline Khan's questions, he knew they made his films brilliant. He didn't hate Gene Hackman's seriousness, Chloris Leechman's rebellion, Richard Pryor's fire, or Anne Bancroft's strength. He was in awe of them. He understood that to create comedy that lasts, you need friction. You need chaos. You need to work with artists who will push you and drive you crazy on the way to making something immortal. The story of Mel Brooks isn't about hate. It's about the profound, complicated, and frustrating love for the beautiful madness of comedic genius. What do you think? Which of these legendary, difficult collaborations is your favorite? And were you fooled by the viral story of the hate list? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed getting the real story behind a Hollywood rumor, Make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more. Thanks for watching.